So thank you for joining us and offering your insight and expertise.
Thank you, Rain. My pleasure. And again, it's a tragedy, as you've mentioned. And when we take a look at a case of this magnitude, it's really like an onion. You know, there's so many levels and layers, but on its surface, of course, we have an unfortunate and a wrongful death. Now, as you've mentioned in the introduction, the terminology cold gun would suggest that it was a prop. And yet the specificity of this gun, we are looking at a powerful weapon, a Colt 45 revolver. And that is in and of itself nothing that should have been on the cinematography set. So from a criminologist standpoint, we also have two more things that we're analyzing, and that would be criminal liability and civil liability. So the first question is, did a crime occur in this particular case? I would maintain yes. Why? Because there's gross negligence, there's gross recklessness, there's flawed decision-making, and these individuals on this cinematography set have a right to be safe and secure, and protocols, policies, procedures were not adhered to. Then we have the other side of the coin, right? We have civil liability. Now the question becomes, this young lady, a 42-year-old Miss Hutchins, who was married, leaves behind a husband, Matthew, leaves behind a 9-year-old son, Andros, who for years to come, they will be grieving. This is now the victimology process of criminology. Who are the victims? Primary victim, of course, is Miss Hutchins. Secondary victims become the husband and the son. And now, Rain, we have tertiary victims. That's the rest of us in society questioning this. Why did this happen? This should not have happened. This young lady left for work, as millions of people across the country do, saying goodbye to her husband and to her son, and it should not have been a final goodbye.
Yeah, you're right, Dr. Debbie. A lot of people wondering just how did this happen. You briefly touched on safety protocols that are in place on movie sets, but let's take it a step further because, you know, weaponry is used all the time in movies. So are there any laws in place currently when it comes to safety in movies?
Right. Well, thank you for that very important question. And literally, Rain, as we speak, there is going to be a movement. Literally, the terminology would be called Helena's Law. And that would speak directly to movie sets, films, cinematography, where there would be a complete and totality of a ban on actual weaponry and ammunition. And if we would like to take our viewers one step farther in this conversation, there's occupational safety. The bottom line is everybody has a right, an expectation when they go to their workplace to be safe. It shouldn't matter, right? Whether one is a judge or a janitor, a plumber, a politician, a student, or a senator. There is an expectation, and it's a reasonable one. It's a logical one for occupational safety. That did not happen, Rain, on the set of Rust. And the question becomes, do we have criminal liability? Do we have civil liability? And I think the answer on both sides is yes.
Now, I want to take it back to the most recent announcement. In a press conference on Wednesday, Santa Fe County Sheriff Adam Mendoza, he told reporters, quote, "It's too early right now in the investigation to comment on charges," but he said that his department is working with the FBI to process the evidence. Now, what normally happens in cases like this? Can you walk us through the investigation process? What exactly are detectives looking for?
Yes, absolutely. So at the moment, it's a mystery, just like we would be watching a movie mystery, reading a mystery novel, if you will, because again, we have a wrongful death. That's the part Z. Now we got to bring it all the way back to A, and this whole case will end up being A through Z. We're not there yet. But every single person, we have excellent local, state, and federal investigators on cases like this, and they will be talking to everybody involved who was on set that day. They will go back in time to figure out Who specifically was in charge of what? What was supposed to happen? What did not happen that should have happened? And the end result here is we have a wrongful death. But is it enough to talk to the people who called the cold gun, who put the weapon out there? Why was that particular weapon there? What about all the pyrotechnics, Rain? What about simulations, computer technology? We know we could take a 2-inch dinosaur on a movie and make it look like it's 6 feet tall. So why did we need to have, whose decision was that? Very flawed decision making, very unreasonable to compromise safety and security. So every single person will be queried on this, Rain, as they should be. Investigators will determine certainly liability, cause of death, and there's a threading that happens too. It is almost like a domino effect, if you will. The end result is 42-year-old Miss Helena Hutchins is the decedent. But going back in time, what didn't happen that should have? That's where we get to criminal liability issues. That's where we get to civil liabilities. And Rain, even if we were to ask our viewers to take a moment and just think about the person that they love the most in their life who may have passed, and what would it be worth to them to bring that life back? That's how we take a look at the civil liability. So I'm at the moment seeing both sides of the coin with liability. This is a wrongful death, and actions were taken that were flawed, that were negligent, that were reckless, and Miss Hutchins should not have died, leaving behind now a widower and a young son who grows up without his mother, who will be looking out into the stands when he's potentially playing sports or music, dance, drama, all the academic accolades that a child would be part of, and there's an empty seat that should have been his mother.
When you mentioned looking at the bigger picture, we're also getting reports that a number of crew members actually walked off of the set because of safety concerns. They were afraid of the current conditions that were taking place as they were filming this movie. And I can only imagine that that would play a big role in the investigation.
You're absolutely correct, Rain. It most certainly will. Therefore, what does that speak to? That speaks to knowledge. These other staff members had knowledge that their safety was compromised, and they took their own measures to ensure preservation of life and security. And that is very shameful that this was an environment, a workplace environment where occupational safety was compromised. That should never have happened.
And we still have no idea how the live ammunition got on the set.
Correct. Well, now we're at that point of he said, she said. We know that the assistant director, Mr. Halls, is the one who placed the weapon into Mr. Baldwin's hand, also claiming, as you mentioned at the onset, cold gun. However, there's now a little bit of finger pointing, if you will, or taking a look in the rear view, because there was a secondary staff member who allegedly was supposed to check that prop, if you will. Supposed to have been a prop, Rain. I don't know who would assimilate a prop gun with a Colt 45 revolver with an actual bullet. There was no check, there was no double check, there was no triple check. And in our world of criminology, that equates to negligence, recklessness, and liability.
All right, Dr. Debbie Goodman, is there anything that you are paying particularly close attention to as we continue to watch this unfold?
Well, again, Rain, as we know, a crime of this magnitude will receive daily attention, and every bit of information matters. So I will also be paying very close attention, and will be happy to rejoin as new information comes forward.